welcome him to the stage right now if he wants to come down here. This is Senator Ron Watson. So please give him a big round of applause as he makes his way down.
Thank you so much.
Most welcome.
How's everybody? So this is the end note. So I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read my notes. All right? And let me first say I'm so glad you all are here. And I don't know about you all, but I've learned a whole heck of a lot in just a couple presentations. And we all see how deep and complex the subject matter is, but we also see how much opportunities that there really are out here. So let me just tell you real briefly about myself. I serve on the Maryland Senate, and I serve on two important committees. One is Education, Energy, Environment. And of course, as you can imagine, with the energy, everything is data centers, all day, all night. The other important committee is the Workforce on Biotech, IT, and Information Technology. And that's where we get to delve into aspects like artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, and how we can leverage these technologies to bear for state and local governments to create efficiencies, workforce development, new opportunities, business growth, economic development, you name it, that's what we want to do with respect to technology. And this has been a really, really tough road. This year I was able to pass two very important bills. One is the Digital Asset and Blockchain Technology Task Force, where we really want to look at everything you have read about use cases. Let's open our eyes and see what can we possibly look at, hone, improve, leverage for the sake of state and local government that can improve the quality of life for Marylanders, okay? The other important bill that I was able to pass is a bill that focuses on a specific use case for real property. Now, you heard one of the previous speakers talk about, mention somebody named Ebony Stocks, but Ebony is the Baltimore solicitor who's actually helped to champion placing over 260 properties in the city of Baltimore into a blockchain. And the reason they wanted to do that is because as they're looking to redevelop parts of Baltimore, there are tons and tons of properties and row houses that are abandoned, and you cannot find the owners of these properties. And so when somebody wants to come and buy up a whole street, it takes so much time to figure out who owns the property, are they going to release it, are they going to sell it, what's the deal? So they've been doing that. And then talking to her on one of the breaks, she's also working on tokenizing municipal bonds. And so how can you take folks who live in a disinvested community and give them a true stake by allowing them to purchase fractional shares, using tokenization process, and they can have a say in what goes on and also reap some type of benefit. But all that being said, what I really wanted to talk about, just real briefly, now that we have passed the bill to establish a task force, how incredibly important it is that we align with the Genius Act. And I know U.S. Senator Angela Alsterbrook was here a little earlier talking about that. And we want to make sure that now that it looks like we have a framework in place, that we work within that framework to identify some quick wins for the entire state of Maryland. And so we know that the central question that the Genius Act addresses really is, how do we allow digital assets to innovate while ensuring financial stability, consumer protection, and trust, right? And through that bill, I've identified 5 major goals, right? The first one is to establish regulatory clarity. Is a token a security? Is it a commodity? What actually is it? How do we define it? And this year, I tried to pass an update to our Maryland Uniform Commercial Code to really specify what digital assets are. We were not able to get that thing passed out of the Senate, but we're going to do it again in upcoming years. But not just is it a commodity, who regulates it, and can businesses safely build, around that? The second piece is, from the Genius Act, requires stable coins to be backed by real assets. Does one digital dollar equal a dollar of reliable reserves? So what does that mean from the state level? We need to look at digital asset reserves and financial stability in a working group: stablecoin reserves, tokenized deposits, digital payments, consumer protections, and financial institution participation. This is very important. To do all of these things, we have created an array of participants that have yet to be selected. They include the Maryland Banking Commissioner, the State Treasurer, the Department of Commerce, Federal Reserve representatives, banks, fintech companies, a variety of folks that we want to bring to bear to actually help us focus on these issues, which is why it's so very important that we maintain membership in some of these associations and foundations, because we actually want to be able to select from folks like you to help us and participate in some of these working groups. No, the working groups don't pay any money. But what you do can help Marylanders and hopefully help Maryland set the example for what other states can do out here. Number 3 was consumer protections that the Genius Act wanted to focus on. So here in Maryland, you know, that's the fraud prevention, disclosure requirements, redemption rights, et cetera. And so from a task force perspective in the state of Maryland, we really want to answer the question, how do Maryland residents safely participate in this digital economy? Digital asset consumer education programs like we're doing today, fraud prevention initiatives, senior citizen protections against crypto scams, which happen each and every day, and cybersecurity standards for digital asset firms. Goal number 4, encourage American innovation. And that being said, how do we make Maryland a destination for blockchain innovation? And I really want to explore economic development, but also blockchain startups, fintech companies, federal contractors, cybersecurity companies, and AI and blockchain convergence. And why is this so important to Maryland? Maryland is home to the National Security Agency. Maryland has a huge cybersecurity workforce, variety of federal agencies, university research ecosystem. And I'll tell you, I have been a consultant with the National Security Agency for over 28 years. And what I do there is all related to artificial intelligence, but I'll get back to that. Goal 5 is the federal-state coordination, right? So our task force should not duplicate federal regulations, but instead it should answer, where does Maryland have authority and opportunity? And so to do that, this is a 2-year work group. And so we can break that up into a couple different working groups. One would be the digital asset regulation and policy, and the other one would be blockchain applications beyond cryptocurrency, as well as financial innovation, stablecoins, cybersecurity, privacy and trust, and economic development workforce. So that's the goal of what we try to put in place. And so remember, as a state senator, you know, I get to go to Annapolis for 90 days, and 90 days after passing a budget, I have to think outside the box, talk to smart people like yourselves, and figure out what framework do I need to put in place to move the ball down the field. If you know legislation always lags technology. We can't keep up. I mean, tomorrow something new happens, and now we're in reaction mode. And at another talk that I had at GBBC meeting, you know, I talked about we're always catching up. We're always catching up because technology is moving so fast, so very, very fast. I mean, there are literally new models, new large language models, you know, every other day as these companies try to leapfrog each other, you know, and it's really, really fascinating to see, you know, how fast things are moving. And so we have to really look at legislation, put something in place to set the guardrails to make sure everybody's protected. Now, this is not easy. It's not just saying, okay, here's a bill, we're going to amend this bill, everybody agree, pass it, let the governor sign it. Yeah, I wish it was that easy. When you're sitting in a committee trying to convince an 80-year-old legislator about artificial intelligence, when they barely remember what Ataris used to look like, it's very, very challenging, which is why these work groups are so very, very important. And so once you get a work group passed, you know, it's very, very important that they succeed. We have to come out with strategic and implementable recommendations at the state level where we can really move the ball down the field. Now, let me just go back to tell you again what I do at NSA. You know, I work for a group called CSCRIM, Cybersecurity, Cyber Supply Chain Risk Management, right? And in the past, you know, when you talk about supply chains, you're talking about purchase of hardware, you know, computers, servers, you know where they are in the enterprise, you know, asset tracking, configuration management. It gets all into that. But we've added artificial intelligence to the game. My job is to literally evaluate large language models to bring them into the enterprise for use, because our president is really going down the road trying to make sure we do not lose this artificial intelligence race with foreign countries, okay? Now, that poses a lot of risk. There was a company that incorporated AI and a large language model, you know, for their work, and the large language model took it upon itself to delete all the files, all the back office files, all of them. And when they asked the AI why it did it, it gave some kind of excuse. But it explicitly went around a hard-coded effort that said you cannot delete anything without direct human intervention, and it did it. And so now we do a whole lot of pen testing. We do a whole lot of using AI to try to find vulnerabilities in these large language models before we deploy them in our workplace. So our large language models, they have to specify some criteria. We have to get them from the Hugging Face. They have to be in a safe tensor format and all these kinds of things. Then they come in, we go to Protect AI, and we do all kinds of vulnerability scans and those types of things. Then we have to have a valid use case, and then we have to know which system they're going to reside on. And is the system connected to the internet? Is the system connected to top secret stuff? Where is it going to go? And to make sure we got the firewalls in place and everything is protected. And only then can we allow this to be used where it needs to be. But if some type of latent issue pops up, we have to be able to go through the enterprise, identify every instance of where we deployed these AI models, and notify folks and take immediate action. Because that is the risk from a national security perspective of having to balance the speed and the efficiency of AI versus the security of the nation, all right? So I just wanted you guys to understand that the cybersecurity part of this is really, really important, as exciting as all the technology, you know, can be looking down the road. And so I really wanted to end that note on that note. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of extra time with you, but I just wanted to let you all know how much I really appreciate all of you coming here, and how important it is that each of you in this room help us to educate the public, because this is a road we have to go down, otherwise we're going to be left behind, in my opinion. And, you know, squeaky wheel gets the grease. And we need to be able to act first so that we can leverage this technology and be prepared for what comes next. So I thank you very much. And Jackie, thank you for the kind invitation, as always. Oh, Lord, questions. Any questions? Yes, sir. So I'll give you my honest assessment. I think it's going to go slow. And the reason why, as I said, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. All the talk right now, especially in the state of Maryland, is data centers. There is this fear of data centers. There is a lack of understanding how intricately data centers, you know, tie into AI and blockchain and everything we have to do. There's this fear that they will ruin the environment and all of these things, the sound, the recyclable water, you know, the increase in power consumption and all of these things. What we took a lot of time to do last session, I do sit on the Energy Committee, is to say, hey, you know, if a data center is going to come, you know, particularly hyperscalers, they got to bring their own power, number one. Number two, let's see if we can get them to use recyclable water so the water supply doesn't go back into potable water. The third piece, which we haven't really touched on, is what is the actual setback or the distance that a data center should be from residential places? Because the residents don't want to hear the noise, they don't want to see any vibration, and on the occasion where we have to run backup generation using diesel to do routine maintenance, you don't want to smell fumes. Those things have to be worked out, and they can be worked out. But I will tell you, for Maryland to be next door to Virginia, and for Virginia to have a $2 billion surplus and to Maryland be sitting on a $1 billion deficit makes no sense at all. We have to look at our regulatory environment. We have to figure out what protections we can put in place, educate the residents at large, but we have to move forward. Now, I do think Elon Musk is going to put data centers in space. It makes sense. You got unlimited supply of power. You can microwave that down here, do what you need to do. But until that happens, we need to generate revenue. The prices of everything is skyrocketing. It's impacting everyone. Everybody's upset about it, but we're missing the boat. And so if we say in Maryland, we're going to do a moratorium on data centers, where's the money going to come from to close these gaps? Where is it going to come from? And so I'm very close to the governor. I've been trying to get him to think strategically. And yes, he may have big picture focus right about now, nationally. But here at home, we have real problems we have to solve. They can be solved with technology if we're just open-minded, but we have to educate the Luddites out here to let them know that this is very important and it's really needed. All right. Yes, sir. So we have just initiated a series of 3 or 4 work sessions. The challenge with doing what you said means folks have to be humble and recognize they don't know everything. Today, all of our CISOs and CIOs and CTOs, they got all kinds of credentials. Everybody thinks they know everything. Everybody goes to a conference coming back, hey, I'm the AI expert. It's how do you get them in the room and let them know, here's some things you might be missing, or here's a thing that you may want to consider. That's very hard to do. It's easier as a legislator to say, you're going to do this, and now they have to come and tell us what they're actually doing. You know, so it's kind of carrot stick. I don't know what you want to call it, but you're right. There needs to be a higher level of education because folks get used to doing the same thing over and over again, but they don't really understand a lot of times where technology going, especially if it's not in the budget, to get these folks to come to places like this or sometimes out of the country to see what new technology really is ready to bring to bear. It's not easy. Yes, sir.
Did I understand you correctly? That is, you're interested in increasing the number of blockchain startups, maybe companies also affiliated with AI and ML?
Yeah, I like your haircut, by the way. It's very handsome. The thing that's important right now in the state of Maryland is economic development. We do not have the economic engines like Virginia does. We just don't. We don't have that Silicon Valley-ish corridor that Virginia does. We need to create revenue. And if we create more business revenue, then that reduces property tax and people will smile at you on the street if you're an elected official. The blockchain businesses I'm talking about, in my mind, a business is a business. But blockchain businesses have the ability to exploit a new niche that currently doesn't exist out here. And if we do it the right way, we can build this new category of businesses and let folks see the value because we're starting really, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, but here in Maryland, we're starting from ground zero. We have the ability to market this thing the right way, to put the right guardrails in place, and to train the workforce to be able to make these businesses thrive. We just need to figure out, and this is always the catch-22, how can a new business come on board with minimal state investment, right? A lot of new business startups have great ideas, but they want state investment. That means taxpayer money, right? So now we have to increase our expenses to get some kind of perceived return on investment, which might be 2-3 years down the road. Yes, sir.
Well, if Virginia has more capital, startup capital is a problem. But if Virginia has, let's say, a better budget right now, would you all consider helping a business get started up in Virginia and then have an office in Maryland?
No. And I don't mean to be flippant. We are in direct competition with Virginia. You need to understand that. And I look at what goes on in Virginia each and every day. I look at it from what they're doing in casinos and iGaming and those types of things. I've sponsored for 4 years in a row an iGaming piece of legislation because, you know, we have sports betting online now, right? You have casinos, you have table games, you have all of these things. The third leg of the three-legged stool is online gaming. Virginia tried to pass an online gaming bill last year. It passed out of the Senate, and it failed. They want to put a casino on the other side of the bridge to compete against MGM, which is right here in Prince George's County. That is already slated to take away 30% of the revenue from MGM because a lot of the folks who work at MGM are Virginia residents. So these are the things that I look at from a broader economic scale. We're all friends here in the DMV. We were talking about the DMV earlier. But we actually are all still competing with one another for the same resources, the same businesses, and all of those things. I mean, hell, you think about the Commanders. We would have loved to keep the Commanders, you know, in Maryland, but DC had a sweet deal. We're going to give you a multi-billion-dollar investment. We're going to get federal land. We're losing them, right? So this is just the competition. I know it's not really AI related, what we're here to talk about, but I just wanted you to understand that we want Maryland businesses to thrive, right? Now, if you start a business in Virginia and you want to bring an office over here, and then that's something, you know, to talk about. But Maryland would never give you a direct investment in another state. That just won't happen.
Well, sir, with all due respect,
Yeah.
I'm an engineer. State, federal governments, I mean, startup capital is a pain in the butt to raise, you know? So let's say I wanted to kind of go after the federal money out of DC, but then what about my having an office in Maryland? Would that be more attractive than having an office in Virginia and relying on federal and Virginia money and then having an office in Maryland? I'm just trying to figure out.
I'm trying to understand, is the crux of your question, you want help in terms of state money?
I want to help Maryland, man. My family lives here.
No, I get that, and we want you to help us. I thought the question was, you need startup capital to grow your business. You don't care where it comes from. You need contracts.
Washington's got the money. You know what I mean? You see what's going on with this AI and ML stuff. In Loudoun County, those data centers are there. I mean, it's famous. All over the world, they're handling traffic. Those guys in Silicon Valley, those billionaires, they're putting $500 billion investments in AI, and they don't even know where it's going. The way I estimate, four of the companies, I think, put about $500,000 or so in AI. That's about $1 trillion, man. So, I mean, we got to go the AI route. I mean, that's what the government's doing. That's what the rich are doing.
We do have to go the AI route, but understand this. While I understand the need for startup capital, there are businesses who don't need startup capital. They come here and they plump down, their money, and they're ready to rock and roll. And a lot of them are from out of this country, honestly, okay? So this is what we're competing against, and it's a real issue. It's just a real issue of how we do that. Yes, sir.
Senator, it's all about leveraging, right? Leveraging what you have in the space. So rather than go against Virginia in the data center space, which they have a huge competitive advantage. Maryland's got a huge advantage in healthcare, right? That 270 corridor, right, is one of the few places in America where we've got that kind of concentration of healthcare growth. At the intersection of AI and healthcare, right? Healthcare is like 1/6 of the national economy. And so what I'm wondering is, and I participate on the AI and blockchain are fit together beautifully because blockchain can secure AI, right? We're talking about healthcare data, right? Consent management, all case management, all of that stuff. Blockchain, AI, and healthcare is a phenomenal combination. Would you be interested and willing to explore how trying to do economic development in that area where you guys already have a competitive advantage? More healthcare, more AI companies to that 270 corridor.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. The challenge is, especially here in Maryland, with the reality of the deficit that we have, is convincing the powers that be that a serious capital investment is needed, and you won't see the results for a couple years, and we need money today. That's just the reality of the economics that we have to deal with at the state level and the budget we're challenged to balance.
I'd be willing to help you tackle that in our economic development, healthcare, and
Yeah. Now, I've seen it done before, but in the cases I've seen it done before, the businesses have a huge amount of, I call it marketing capital. They're able to do a pro bono pilot, very, very small scale. They're not going to risk a lot. But once they show the tangible results, then they're able to get some economic buy-in, at the state level and really do something a lot larger. But, you got to be able to show the efficacy of what you want to do instead of putting this outlay and waiting years to see it.
let's talk afterwards. I might have some connection with HHS that might be able to.
I thought you were taking me to dinner. Oh, I'm just kidding. Okay. Any more questions? This is great. See, I like the fireside chats. Yes, sir. It's a good question. So I do have another job as well. I'm kind of a hired hitman sometimes. So one of my other contracts that I have is my job is to evaluate new and emerging technology for incorporation into state and local government that builds efficiency. That's one of the things that I do. And I've been banging my head because I'll come to a conference like this and I'll meet somebody, get a private presentation, and then try to set them up with a chief technology officer, in a specific county, or someone at the Department of Information Technology at the state level. Is called Do It. And I'm not able to make that connection happen. Everybody is so busy, they have their way of doing things, they're not open to new ideas and those kinds of things. And unfortunately, I have to have a use case or a government who has done it so that I can put it in legislation, because that is the forcing function. From my perspective, that's the leverage, that I have. The days of knocking on doors and say, hey, I'd like to show you something, you need a good relationship to really, be able to open those doors and get somebody's time to look at that, especially if there's going to be a cost associated with it. But the ideas are what is important. The spreading of those ideas, the coming to the conferences and seeing who will pick up on it. Because once somebody does it, oh, well, Maryland can't be left behind. We really got to do it. then things change. The whole conversation changes. It's amazing. All right. Anybody else? Can I go to dinner now, meet my wife? All right. Hey, thank you all so much again. I really, really appreciate your time.
Well, before you go to dinner, actually, I would like to have a few people come up on stage just so we could take some pictures, if that's okay. So if Gerard could come up on stage, if Stuart can come up on stage, if, let's see, who else spoke today? I think that's still in the, Michael, come on. Come on down. All right. I'll let Matt take the pictures. So for those that spoke the other days, like Dennis and Chris and some of the others, we're going to be taking pictures tomorrow, and we're definitely going to make sure everyone has a picture.